Can't wait for
Very
hockey.
good. So we are live.
Not yet, not yet.
Oh, we're not live.
Live on YouTube.
Okay, I'm still showing setting up, so I just want to start recording and then you can go ahead. Counselor Huntley, did you say you could see it live?
It came up and says live on YouTube in the corner.
It does on mine too.
Okay, I've got connection timed out and failed, so I'm going to try one more time.
We should probably come like 1:45 to get this all done.
Yeah, right.
Anybody see the meme of the two astronauts? And it says from the US, and then below it's got a picture of Bob and Doug McKenzie as the Canadians.
It's streaming to YouTube. Lana.
Okay, we'll try to go ahead.
Maybe we should stop and start that YouTube portion. Just a suggestion.
See, I think I've got it's timed out again. I don't think it's staying live.
So maybe we should take the live off the YouTube. You're trying to record it separately, correct?
No, I haven't done that yet. We're still just trying to go live.
No, it's.
It is
Got it.
live. It is on it. I can see it right now. It is
Okay.
live. Okay.
Quite the delay.
Mhm.
That's for the Tim sensor.
Okay, we're going to go forward and we'll watch and make sure. Okay.
All right. Very good. Good afternoon, everybody. We are having our regular council meeting during the COVID-19. So we are meeting virtually via Zoom and via YouTube. So welcome to those watching. We have Councillor Tim Belch from North Monaghan, Deputy Mayor Matthew Graham, Councillor Ryan Huntley from the Millbrook Ward, and Councillor Kathy Moore from the Cavan Ward. I call to order today's regular council meeting of the Township of Cavan on this Monday, June 1st, 2020. I'd ask for approval of the agenda. Moved by Kathy, seconded by Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes,
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is carried. I'd ask that any members of council please disclose any pecuniary interest and a general nature thereof at this time or when the situation arises. Seeing none, there is no closed session. There is no delegations. Our first item is item 7.1, minutes of the regular council meeting held May 19th, 2020. Can I get a motion for those minutes? Actually, before we have that approval, there was the one item. It was the motion from the May 19th meeting in pertaining specifically to the road closure. The motion specifically mentions Hay Street, but I believe it was the intent to actually use Allen Lane, not Hay Street. So with Madam Clerk, do we do that through the minutes, or do you want an additional motion? How do you want to do that?
You could do an additional motion here, or you could address it in the report and capital status. But if you want to just do a motion here to make that amendment to the minutes, we can do that.
As long as council's okay with that. The intention all along was to close it there right at the pharmacy, but the motion indicates Hay Street, which is what we spoke to, but it was meant to be Allen Lane. Council prefer to do it here, or we can do it later in the council committee verbal reports.
I'd just say do it
Councilor Huntley?
now. I'd
Yeah,
say
I prefer
fix
just
it.
do it now. Okay,
Yeah,
so,
Fix it as an amendment.
okay, motion to receive those or adopt those minutes with the amendment from Councillor Huntley, second.
Sorry, just to interrupt,
Councillor-
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
could we do that as a separate motion? So
do it as
just
a
in-
separate motion. Okay, a motion then to adopt the minutes before us. We got Councillor Huntley and Councillor Graham. Madam
Mhm.
Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes,
Councillor Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes,
Mayor McFadden.
Yes. Did we lose Councillor Belch? Oh,
yes.
he's back. Okay. So Madam Clerk, at this time then, we'll do a motion to modify that previous motion with regards to the street name,
Okay, so from Hay to,
Allen Lane.
thank you.
Okay, I believe we have a mover in Councillor Huntley, correct?
Correct.
And a seconder? Councillor Moore. Okay, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Moore,
Yes,
Councillor Belch,
yes,
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. All right, we will move along. Next item is minutes, 8.1 minutes from the Millbrook Valley Trails Advisory Committee meeting held May 25th, 2020. Motion to adopt those minutes.
Actually, I had a question.
Councillor Huntley?
Through you, Chair, to Deputy Mayor Graham, because I believe you're on the board. I think it's section 7.4, if you scroll down, there's reference to doing property searches or something like that, but it really doesn't say what properties you're searching or who owned it. I wasn't sure the context of that whole section.
Yeah, sure. So Councillor Huntley, through you, Chair, I think there was I don't think, there was a request to get an understanding of certain properties that surround the existing trail network, just to get an understanding of which might be vacant or which are township owned, et cetera, to get an understanding where future trails might be, or even where, unfortunately, due to some natural occurrences, we might have to reroute one of the trails as it currently exists. So it was just to get an understanding of the lay of the land surrounding us, to understand what's township property, what's conservation authority approved or Orca owned or overseen. So there's already been some conversations with M&R with regards to their properties and trails being incorporated there. So it was just a basic search to get an understanding, and I believe it was exclusively no properties were identified that were privately owned outside of those under Orca control and under township control. So there wasn't actually any list of other privately owned properties in what was requested. So it was up in the mostly surrounding that Meds Mountain area, or the sort of rough cut areas around the fairgrounds or thereabouts. So that was the reasoning.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
No
Very
problem.
good. Any other questions on the minutes? If not, a motion then for those minutes. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Moore, Madam Clerk, record a vote. Madam Clerk, record a vote.
Councillor Belch,
yes,
Councillor Moore,
Yes,
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is carried. Moving into reports, item 9.1, Report Finance 2020-11, Tax Levy, Special Services Levy, and BIA bylaws. Ms. Pope.
Good afternoon, Council. I have before you the annual tax levy, special services levy, and BIA bylaws in order for us to put together our final tax bills that will go out the first week in July. This year, you'll notice once we post to the website that we have now an amalgamated general rate. We've been waiting a number of years from the county to be able to merge the rate for the transfer station. We had done that a number of years ago when we offered curbside pickup throughout the municipality. So now this year, instead of seeing it split by ward, you'll see one general rate for all. There's no reason to split by ward anymore. And then I've just provided the additional details, which also show the education and the county portions as well. So this is the bylaw just for setting out our tax rate so we can move forward.
Very good. Any questions from members of council?
Yes,
Councillor Belch?
through you, Chair, just wondering at what time, Ms. Pope, will we know
Madam Clerk, is it my connection or is it Councillor Belch's?
I believe it's
Okay.
Councillor Belch's.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Councillor Belch, we don't hear your question and your video is gone.
I thought he was just sitting still.
Okay,
Nope.
okay. There we go. Okay, the question to, through the chair to Ms. Pope is, at what time will she know approximately where we stand with regard to collection of taxes? Usually she'll know, or are just interest purely because of COVID. Just wondering when she'll know that.
Councillor Belch, I don't know if Kimberly heard your answer or your question. We heard the first part and the last part and the middle part, which probably would have been the most important part, we didn't hear.
Okay, I'll try again.
Just the middle part.
Okay, the middle part is to know when she'll have the information with regards to how many, because of the COVID situation, how many people have not paid their taxes for the previous year.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor Belch, we do have some of that information on the last report. Our next billing due date, where the penalty and interest would normally be charged, is actually today's date, the 1st. So we allow 2 to 3 business days for the banking transactions to occur and be brought into us. So my next report will include the June 1st loss. It's not really based on number of properties, but more so total dollar value of loss. But I can definitely bring that forward on my next report. That was the intention, and also to bring forward any other departmental losses that we potentially may be incurring at this time as well. We'll continue to update that report. So I believe that we'll have the information for the next council meeting to be able to provide you with that update.
Very good. Any further questions from members of council?
No.
Seeing none? Okay, motion then to receive the report, accept the recommendation. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Ryan, or Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Pope. And you're back up again. Report Finance 2020-12 Federation of Canadian Municipalities FCM Municipal Asset Management Program Grant Application. Ms. Pope.
Thank you. Through the chair to council, this is basically a follow-up from our budget meeting where we received approval to go ahead with the next few steps for the asset management program. And this is the MAMP grant that has now opened up, and we'd like to apply. In the original budget, we had said the total cost would be $67,200 in this year's 2020 taxation, being reduced by the $50,000 we were hoping to receive from this grant, and therefore the net municipal cost was $17,200. Recommendation number 1 is exactly word for word the recommendation that the grant requires in order for us to proceed. And recommendation number 2 just highlights for you the funding that I just described.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, motion then to receive the report and accept the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Belch and seconded by Councillor Moore. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
yes,
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Thank you, Ms. Pope. Our next report, Planning 2020-09, Bromont Homes Part Lot Control Exemption Bylaw Block 143, Plan 45M-256. And we
Mayor
have Ms.
McFadden,
Ellis.
members- Mayor McFadden, members of council, planning report 2020-09 is before you today with recommendations that bylaw number 2020-29 be approved to temporarily remove part lot control from block 143 on plan 45M-256 as permitted under section 50 subsection 7 of the Planning Act. And secondly, that bylaw number 2020-29 be forwarded to Peterborough County for approval. If council remembers, we have gone through this process on other blocks within the Tower Hill South subdivision. We will go through this process on all the townhouse blocks. So because Peterborough County is the approval authority for plans of subdivision, they must bless the bylaw. So that's why you see the second recommendation contained in the report.
Very good. Any questions from members of council? Similar to the previous one that we had to do for the early part of the subdivision. Okay, motion then, moved by Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Ryan, Councillor Moore. Why do I keep saying Councillor Ryan? Councillor Huntley. Motion to receive that report and accept the recommendation from Deputy Mayor Graham and Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Moore,
yes,
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. What an agreeable council we have today. Next item is 9.4, Report Planning 2020-10, Veltri and Son Limited, Nina Court Extension Subdivision Architectural Design. Ms. Ellis?
Mayor McFadden and members of council, planning report 2020-10 is before you today with the recommendation that bylaw number 2020-30 be approved to adopt the March 2020 architectural design guidelines for plan of subdivision 15T-16001, Veltri Nina Court. Just to give you a little background, there are policies in the township's official plan that permit the township to ask for design guidelines in the urban settlement area for developments more than 8 units. And so as a matter of routine, we are asking for design guidelines. The applicant submitted design guidelines that were reviewed by staff. We sent them back for some revisions and they've come back with the guidelines before you today that have been reviewed by staff. And the information provided meets the intent of the official plan policies and the zoning bylaw regulations.
Very good. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
And thank you. And through you, Chair. Ms. Ellis, I got a question with regards to the sort of composition that we have here. I was happy to see that 4 of the units are bungalow style, because there's definitely a limit of those small sort of footprint homes in the community. One of the things that I wasn't or I wanted to ask you about is with regards to accessibility considerations, and I'm not sure that we might have some language in the OP as it stands right now for sort of requesting or having sort of actual policies by which we can make the request to have some accommodations built to accommodate accessibility, but especially given the nature of our population's demographics and the aging population. I know the mayor's spoken a number of times about the concerns with, having to, family need to move out of our community when they have reached a certain level of care or certain limitations of actual mobility. And I have concerns that moving forward as a municipality, with the absence of ROP having some requirements for even a very sort of amenable, as the Alnwick 4 models have, floor plan, that certain considerations for mobility aren't made. And I wondered if you could speak to that and maybe give us some insight as to considerations moving forward.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So there are no specific policies in the official plan or regulations that speak specifically to mobility issues. The OP policies tend to talk about having a variety of styles and types of dwelling units. So that means different styles like apartment units, single detached, townhouses, etc., different densities. The zoning then further implements that OP policy with regulations about lot size, lot coverage, etc. So far to date, we do not have anything that goes beyond what the building code would require in terms of making dwelling units accessible. That is something I think that the developer or the builder of the dwelling may wish to address should they have a client that needs some compensation in that regard.
Thank you. Just a follow-up, Mayor.
Okay.
Just, I understand, and I think that, my concern is that the adjustments made thereafter might, there could be obviously cost passed down onto the purchaser, or the cost would be fully borne by the purchaser if the homes are already constructed to a nature. But I just think, especially given, like I said, the demographic that we have, and there is a diversity of homes that have requirements, and just because a home is built to an accessible standard, or some homes are built to an accessible standard, doesn't mean that they're excluded from or retained from the marketplace to be purchased by other individuals. It's just, in my opinion, going to be something that we should consider moving forward, because having it in place, and we're not asking for every unit or a percentage of units necessarily, but I would be it would be my sort of will, or I would ask the other members of council if there is an openness to providing just a comment to the developer back in response to the design, to make a consideration for having at least one of these 4 models of the bungalow style made with accessibly accommodations therein. Just because, like I said, it's going to be a problem moving forward, that we need to address that lack of inventory. And I think that there are nominal fixes that can be done, on a 1 unit per development basis that can really sort of help create that diversity and mix of housing that we don't have at the moment. But I'd be curious to know if other councilors have anything to say on that matter.
Very good. Ms. Ellis, do you want to respond to it first, and then council can speak to it?
Thank you, Mayor McFadden. If I could just ask a question so that I'm clear that I'm understanding what is being said. So this is something that you would like to move forward with on a broader scale, or is it just for this particular development? And am I hearing correctly that you are looking for staff to ask the developer to consider making at least 1 unit accessible in this?
It would, given the nature of the existing OP, I don't think we'd have any grounds to make more than a request. But I'm not suggesting that we make that request without the support of other councilors. I don't necessarily really expect that request to be met, but I do think it's a topic that I wanted to raise, given the nature of this, development just happened to be the next one on the agenda. I know there'll be more to come. But I've had more conversations with individuals in housing, both on the county and members of city staff as well, through the House and Homelessness Task Force conversations that we've had. And it's more and more reinforced to me that this is an inventory that lacks everywhere. And because, like I said again, with the demographic of our population specifically, it's something that creating it doesn't have negative impacts for anyone. And just having it as inventory in our community is going to create an opportunity for it to fill a need that we can't otherwise fill ourselves. So that's I think the extent of it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think if I understand correctly, I don't believe we have the flexibility to require it. We can certainly make the recommendation, but I think to take your recommendation 1 step further, Deputy Mayor Graham, it's a wonderful idea. It's a huge need, and I think it would be appropriate that we would send something like that, a request to the province to take that into consideration when we have the ability as a municipality to control certain aspects of a subdivision. I think it's a wonderful idea, especially given our demographic, that it should be something that they're required to provide, just like it's a requirement for them to provide a mix of different housing styles and to fit the needs. The one that is desperately missing, as you have pointed out, is the accessibility option, and it is something that's really important. So I think we probably should consider sending a letter to the province outlining our concern and our desire to have that incorporated into it. That'd be my suggestion, in addition to recommendation in this as feedback.
Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. And just to be clear, like, I'm not talking about the installation of elevators or
No.
what I'm talking about is accommodation so that individuals with those sorts of requirements can outfit it completely to their needs. So it's things like doorways, the width of doorways and things like that to make it possible even for individuals, whether they're in a wheelchair or some other sort of mobility assisted device, to get into their own home. And there can be things that are done to just set it up so that it can more easily be adjusted to those needs as they're required. And that's why I was just discussing and if council wishes, then I mean, you know, they can support that sort of letter. And I think it's a good start. And it's something to consider in future OPs as well. And I don't want to be too restrictive, but I think a consideration is something we should really consider.
Absolutely. Point well made. Any further questions specifically to this or any other topic from members of council? Councillor Moore?
Yeah, I understand where Councillor Graham's coming from, our Deputy Mayor Graham, but I just, I don't think we should pick up one small subdivision. I think we have bigger, broader developers that we need to plan this with. Like, I don't think we can pinpoint one small developer. Just my.
Yep. Councillor Huntley?
Through you, Chair, I think it's a good idea. And I think it's where in the process we kind of introduce it. Like, I think at this point when all this design work has already been done, it's a little late.
Yeah.
To kind of miss it to to Councillor Moore's point. I think, you know, with upcoming subdivisions coming, like maybe we don't wait for the province to dictate, but maybe if we can get to the developers, you know, while they're still in the planning process and have them kind of incorporate those concepts in, then, you know, we might get a little bit further ahead. I mean, I agree with, you know, let's send it up to the province, but I mean, God only knows how long that might take. Whereas if we just deal with the developer directly, you know, at the beginning of the process, we might get a little further ahead.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I think I don't know whether Ms. Hurley's is there. I don't believe it's something that we can require under the current legislation to require them to provide an accessible home. So we can certainly make the suggestion. A lot of times they will incorporate what our suggestions are. I just thought to give it additional teeth, send the letter to the province that if it were a requirement moving forward, that it could be something that we'd be able to enforce. But for the most part, provided you give the developer the heads up prior to them working on all the architectural designs, that most of them would take fit, but it would be nice if we just had the teeth to enforce it, that's all.
Oh, absolutely.
Any further comments? I've lost Councillor Belch. Councillor Belch, if you're raising your hand, I can't see it, so speak, but I've got Councillor Huntley with another comment.
Through you, Chair, to Ms. Ellis, the option of having multiple types of units or models available is good. I mean, obviously you don't want kind of a homogeneous type neighborhood. My only question is, what enforces that the buyers actually buy different models? Like, if you have 5 models on the shelf and every buyer buys the same model, is there a way to prevent that?
Mayor McFadden, to members of council, yes, that's part of the intention of having the design guidelines, is so that we do not end up with the same model on every single lot. So the developer, together with the building department, will ensure that there is a mix of models and elevations on the street.
Is that in the agreement? Because forgive me if I've missed it. It just didn't seem very obvious to me that was available.
Yeah, it talks about, like, in the preamble what the objectives are, and that's the intention. I'm sorry, I can't point you to the
it's on page 72, siting of dwellings, page 72, or page 6 on the top of the page, but page 72 on the bottom. Yeah, so model repetition, I believe, is what Councillor Huntley is speaking to.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I did miss it. Yep, that's exactly what I was trying to find.
Yeah, so through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So the purchaser will pick a lot and pick a design, but it's up to the developer to direct them that only certain designs will be available on certain lots. So that way that we get a proper mix, so that we don't end up with a repetitive model and color palette throughout the entire development.
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Very good. Along the same lines, similar concern to Councillor Huntley. So it outlines on page 72 under model repetition, it speaks to the model being repeated by the headline, but when you get into it, it's actually referring to they will not site identical elevations. And so if you turn to page 70, the bottom of 74 and the top middle of 75, you can see that that's an elevation A and an elevation B. So elevation B, which is before us right now, you can see it has square posts on the front. And if you go back to model elevation A, it has 2 round posts. So for all intents and purposes, those could be beside one another because the elevations are different, but I don't think that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're looking for different models, not 2 posts versus 1 post, because ultimately you could end up with the same model using a very slight change in the elevation. And I don't think that's what we were trying to do. Ms. Ellis, I don't know whether you can assist in that, but I think council's on the same page. We don't want them all the same, but the way it's technically worded is they could change it up simply by changing from elevation A to elevation B, which are not significantly different.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, 2 members of council. I think, yeah, some of the changes are in materials and that, and some of the elevations are flipped. So there are minor changes, but I think together with the building department, we will ensure that we're not getting the same model repeated on adjacent lots. But some of the differences between the elevations are in materials and some minor nuances in terms of whether they're square columns or round columns, for sure.
Yeah, so I guess if I can speak to that, if it's not specifically spelled out, then if it's not in the agreement, then it doesn't happen. And I don't want to see an elevation A right beside an elevation B that looks exactly the same. And I know you can change the materials, but either we're not supposed to have model repetition or we are. And I think in our, is it the guidelines? We're asking for different models.
Okay, so through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So we've got several lots. So there is going to be model repetition within this subdivision because we've got 32 units that we're going to be building, or not us, but
Yes.
the developer. So there will be some repetition, but I think the goal is that they're not located directly beside each other.
I guess just my question, do we need to change the wording? Because if we're just going by this, elevations won't be beside one another, then it's not accomplishing it. You could end up with the same model all the way down the street.
Okay, so just to be clear, Mayor McFadden, are we looking for a wording change to say that that the different elevations can't be directly beside each other as well, just to make it clear?
I think so. It depends. I'll look at the rest of council. That's my understanding. If council, I've got Councillor Moore.
I'd just like to know what the difference is in what this developer is planning to what our other developers are doing with the repetition of their homes. Like,
so through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So the only other design guidelines we've done to date have been for the Tower Hill South subdivision. So when you drive through that subdivision, you will see a wide range of model types and styles and different materials. So again, when a purchaser goes in to look at a lot, there will be an option in terms of the model and the color palette. But if you love a particular lot and people up beside you have already built a certain style, then it reduces the options for you. So, and together with the building department staff, they make sure that, as I said before, we're not getting the same model on lot after lot after lot.
right.
So it is something that we are using in the urban settlement area. Just to make sure that we do get a variety of styles and types of housing.
Ms. Hurley?
Through you, council, with regards to the comment from the councillor Moore, the difference between Tower Hill possibly or another developer possibly is the way that they sell their homes or they have their architectural design. So for example, you can't, they have a software program that permits when you go in to purchase a house, then another house doesn't come up exactly the same. So it's basically, if you've clicked on a certain type of home that you wish, their software program doesn't allow you to pick the exact same house next door. So it's sort of like, as Karen alluded to, it's a way of them knowing that they can't offer, so that you don't have the repetition of the same house, you know, side by side by side. So if you want to have something, I would suggest you put something different in the language here that just, you know, maybe Karen can work with the developer. They're very good to accommodate in the aspect of what we can do to help and assist, but maybe we could put some language in there at the very beginning when people come in to purchase, that the models are not side by side or the same models. So, I mean, because you do talk about models repetitive, and then they also do talk about the elevation. So if you really feel more comfortable stating that you don't want two of the same model side by side, we should talk to the developer and potentially put some language in here for that.
Ms. Ellis?
To you, Mayor McFadden and members of council, I don't have any problem going back to the developer and asking for that revision. To date, when we've been speaking with the developer, they've indicated that they're not going to do a model home per se. They might build one house and then sell it and then kind of try to sell the lots. But I think because it's a smaller development and they tend to build fewer houses at a time, then they probably will have no objection to the change in the wording and making sure through the building permit process that everything is done in accordance with the design guidelines, ensuring that we don't get the same elevation on adjacent lots.
I think more to that, though, it's not about the elevation. I think we're speaking more to the model.
Model, okay.
Yeah, because the elevation, all the wording is there not to have the same elevations beside one another. But I think just the point in being that changing two columns to one column is square versus round, that's the same house. So I think we're more concerned about the models being beside one another. I think the other wording is fine. I think it's just specifically the models.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Okay, and just another topic too had to do with the parking. So it indicates that there would be permission, all homes would be provided with 2 parking spots. But it's not clear in that if there is a sidewalk going through there, it has to be legal parking. In other words, the cars can't be on the boulevard, or they can't be parked covering part of the sidewalk. That 2 parking spots literally mean between the front of the garage and the sidewalk that would be going through.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So the zoning bylaw for the township of Cavan, Monaghan, in the zoning category that these lots are located within, do require 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit. So the garage space is considered 1 parking space, and then 1 parking space could be accommodated outside. In the zoning for the linked semi-detached homes, the minimum front yard setback is 6 meters from the property line. So unless you have a extra long car, it'll be tight, but there should be room between the garage door and the property line to accommodate at least 1 car in the driveway and 1 in the garage. On the lots that are zoned for the single detached dwellings, the front yard setback is a little bit smaller, but those lots are bigger and wider. And they all come with double car garage. So there would be 2 parking spaces in front of the garage.
Okay, on page 70, under the garage with limitations, they indicate regardless of lot size, we will have a minimum of 2 outdoor parking spaces per house. I just want to ensure that that's between the garage door and the park and the sidewalk, that's all.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council, I will make sure that they understand that. They have been provided the zoning bylaw regulations, but I will certainly go back to them and make sure they understand that there shall be no parking on the sidewalk, because the sidewalk is part of the road allowance, and our zoning bylaw speaks specifically that the parking spaces need to be accommodated on site.
Okay, because I think, if out of this exercise, it's recognized that we need to make an update to our zoning, if we could make note of that, because it was a common theme that I thought was addressed when we dealt with the first subdivision, that a minimum of 2 parking spots were required. So if it's not clearly spelled out in our zoning, then I think we need to address it, because it is something that's very important to council, recognizing that we're a rural community and majority of homes have 2 cars. And typically with a lot of these homes, the garages aren't large enough by the time people put stuff in them to actually put a car in their garage. So we end up with parking all over the road, which doesn't make for an attractive subdivision.
To you,
Deputy Mayor
Mayor
Graham?
McFadden, and members of council, I understand what you're saying. I think this is a tricky issue because the bylaw does speak to having 2 parking spaces per dwelling. So how people organize themselves in terms of what they keep in the garage,
Yeah, I guess if I could speak to that with regards to when we put through the very first subdivision, the 345 homes, we made it very clear that we wanted 2 outdoor parking spots, not to include the garage. Our zoning bylaw followed after that because this council has just passed it. So I would have expected that that zoning would reflect the council's desire to have 2 outdoor dedicated parking spots. So if that's not the way our zoning reads, with council support, I would like to have that revisited, because suggesting that indoor parking and the one in the laneway, although it sounds great, it doesn't, that's not reality. You end up with cars on the road and it creates other problems.
through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council, I understand what you're saying. So our current bylaw does not specify that they have to have a minimum of 2 outdoor parking spaces. With some of the smaller lots that we are seeing being created today because of our density requirements, some of the lots are quite narrow, and to have 2 outside parking spaces between the house and the sidewalk is going to be challenging. You're going to end up with a lot of hard surface. Is that really the kind of atmosphere and that you want to create in an urban subdivision? We have policies that we're looking to more towards, the planting of trees and low impact development, stormwater management measures, trying to green things up, and then to have on a narrow lot, have to have a width for 2 cars between the house and the sidewalk. It will change the look of the subdivision and how it operates.
Okay, I thought respectfully, I thought we'd already dealt with that matter, considering it was loud and clear during the first subdivision that we had to have 2 outdoor, that had to be taken into consideration with regards to the widths of the lots. If there's not a spot for them to park, they're on the road or they're going to be parked on the boulevard. That's the reality of that we live within. So it is what it is. That's our zoning bylaw. Deputy Mayor Graham, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Just, I think on a similar vein, I think that especially in a cul-de-sac subdivision or development such as this, I mean, my concern would be from emergency services standpoint to, for accommodating and providing that service when, at those critical times are lost, to have, sort of the remote nature and contained nature of that sort of environment, that these sorts of, maybe with regards to the policy specifically, I mean, if you're going to create that sort of, street to build upon, I mean, that has to be even more of a consideration to keep those cars off of the road, or maybe require and institute a no overnight parking on the street policy for that specific area, so that we don't have those, sort of impediments in the way in the case of an emergency.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council, I believe that there is an overnight street parking prohibition in Millbrook, at least in the winter time. The bylaw department could probably speak to that. And I know in some other streets in the Millbrook area, we do have parking restrictions, so that parking is only permitted on one side of the street. So I think those are measures that we will be looking at moving forward.
I guess to speak to that, to continue to, the reality is people have a minimum of 2 cars. That's the world we live in the rural community that we're in. And by saying they can't park on the street and there's only one in the driveway and they must park in the garage, and when there's not space in the garage because these lots are so small, we're creating a problem that it becomes an enforcement issue that we're going to have to be sending enforcement out to ticket cars, and it's not helpful. And I know we spent a lot of time on this with requiring Tower Hill to do it. And they've redesigned and they've got double garages and they did all of that, and we've got condensed houses. I'm not comfortable with permitting this to go through without requiring them to have 2 spots that are easily accessible between their garage and the sidewalk. It's not a community I want to live in with cars parked on boulevards and cars on the road when their plows are trying to get through. And I don't think it's reasonable to expect that houses only have one car. So I know we've been through this before, and I want it specifically worded in there relative to the parking issue, because it's a big issue if you drive around the older subdivisions. Ms. Hurley, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Karen, do you have the zoning bylaw, the language in there? Do you have that with you or not?
Yes, I have it here.
Maybe it would help if you read that. Maybe it, I mean, we did talk about making sure that we have 2 spaces for parking previously. Maybe if you could just read that for us.
Yeah, through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council and staff. So under section 12.2.2 of the bylaw, it talks about the parking spaces required, and it's a chart, like a table, that talks about dwelling semi-detached and dwelling single detached, 2 per dwelling unit. And it's the location of, so it gives a minimum size, the maximum width of a driveway. It talks about the width of the lot, but there's nothing in the bylaw that speaks specifically to requiring 2 outdoor parking spaces.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, but it also doesn't specify that parking reflected in a garage setting though. So it doesn't state that 1 car has to park inside the garage and then 1 out. It sort of leaves it up for like interpretation, does it not? Like it doesn't specify 2 outside, and it doesn't specify that it must be in a garage as well. So I'm just saying, is it possible that it's up for interpretation? Could be 2 parking dwellings, whether it's inside or out. So that has that flexibility for us to go back and speak with the developer.
Mr. Mayor, the other, if I can, the other
Mr.
item.
Hancock? Yep.
We got a note in from DG Biddle, that is the consultant for the developer, and he's indicated that the frontages around the cul-de-sac area are the single family, and they're providing 6 meters, which is a double driveway for the singles. He's also indicated in his email that he is providing what's referred to as 5.2 meters for the links, which means that you end up with it will accommodate 2 vehicles outside the garage, slightly wider. A single's only 3 meters, so you can accommodate both. Now, it will mean that you'll have a little more asphalt, a little bit less sod on the front yard, but you can accommodate 2 cars in these units with what we have presently on the driveway entrances. So just a comment for consideration there.
Okay, very good. Did I see other hands up? So maybe just to Ms. Ellis, just a recapture what comments you've got made thus far, because I know we don't have a specific motion at this point, but I know there's been several valid comments made from several members.
Through you, Mayor McFadden, to members of council. So the issues that I have noted that you've raised are to ask the developer to consider an accessible unit, and to potentially ask the province for a requirement for the provision of accessible housing. Moving forward, to ask for accessible housing early on in the planning process. To ask the developer to put some wording in the design guidelines that indicates that the same models cannot be built side by side, and confirmation that there can be 2 outdoor parking spaces for all dwelling units.
Okay, very good. Okay. Council, any other questions? Councillor Belch, I can't see you, so I'm not sure if you're there.
I am there. Or
You are.
here.
Okay.
Yeah.
I suspect that you might have the camera going the opposite direction because we see a chair with nobody in it.
Okay, that is.
Oh, there we go.
opposite.
Tim's back.
Hey.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so any further questions, comments? Madam Clerk, then a motion to incorporate those changes as Ms. Ellis had just indicated.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Just, I'm not sure how you want to handle this motion
Yeah.
because it's the approval of a bylaw.
Okay, Councillor Huntley?
Yeah. So I was kind of on the same path as Miss Ellis, Chair. I like the recommendations. I don't know how you incorporate recommendations into a bylaw.
Yeah. And so
Like
we're
we
supposed to
can't
be
go back
providing
in
our comment.
time.
Yeah,
We can't go back in time and ask them for accessible houses to be considered, right?
correct. Deputy Mayor Graham?
So I think based on Mr. Hancock's comment that I think with regards to the 2 outdoor space comments, that if that indeed is the size of the driveways on the smaller units, that we have that has been accommodated here. I agree with the mayor that we should maybe consider tightening up some of our other language to ensure that that is the case moving forward, which I think is the direction that Mrs. Ellis needs in this case. But again, Councillor Huntley's point with regards to the bylaw, but with the feedback, I think we can approve the bylaw, but still provide the feedback and direction or request, because this is the time when we've been brought forward the information to review, to provide, like I said, I thought the only thing that we could potentially do is provide a verbal request that doesn't really affect our ability to, pass the bylaw. I don't see it as, there's 2 separate things. We can make a list of requests. We can make a request to review certain documentation. And maybe that's I don't think that excludes us from passing the bylaw.
I think you're right. We've got our ideas down there. I want to formalize the ideas with regards to the bylaw. You're right. I believe we're going to pass it. We've got our comments. Can we just take a quick recess and then we'll be right back? Just so we're clear on it. You guys are okay?
Yep.
Okay.
Sure.
back yet?
Pardon?
Are we back yet?
No,
No.
no, I think they left.
Is Matthew there?
Yeah, Tim, I'm here.
Do you know Brad Trost?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay. My mom, I think, took a message a little while ago, and
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about. I don't know him personally, but I have talked to him. Yeah, so
some kind of a donation.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm yeah. Staff's working on getting back to him.
Any particular reason?
I'll talk to you about it after, Tim. We're still recorded here. And you're cutting out again.
Yep. Okay.
It worked fine, Tim, when all we could see was the chair.
So I can turn the camera that way, so that you know that I'm here, but I'm not here. So are you in Montreal for the week or just a day or two? Ryan?
You talking to me?
Yeah. Well, how many other people are
no.
in Montreal right?
I'm not in Montreal.
Seriously?
Yeah,
Well, then I thought that,
I'm in Cavan Monaghan.
yeah, right. You're such a bullshitter. Nice boardroom.
It's my my living room.
Ah, there you go. The meeting man. So is anybody interested in this playoff schedule that they put forward by the NHL?
I haven't seen it actually.
Yeah, it's a 24 team schedule. It'll be between two that would place two hubs. I doubt that Canadian hub is going to be formed, even though they've got what, Vancouver, Toronto, Edmonton listed as possible ones. But the thing that's going to stop them, I think, is that the Canadian government's going to insist on 14 days quarantine if it goes between US and Canada, which
Right.
be a problem. So.
All right, we all ready to go back? Everybody's all raring, ready to go? Okay. So I think the best way to reflect the comments is we've made the comments with regard that Ms. Ellis has captured. We've got a bylaw before us. I don't see any member of council trying to request any changes to it. So I think we move ahead with approval of the bylaw. We provide our comments back with regards to the report that's before us, and we ensure that our comments are reflected within the subdivision agreement that's at a later stage. Madam Clerk, how do you want us? Do you want Ms. Ellis to specifically list those items so that you've got them as part of those comments, or how do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Mayor, I think if you have a motion that just directs staff to address those issues, I have them here with the parking for 2 vehicles, the side-by-side models regardless of elevation, the consideration of an accessible unit, and then specifically to the province with regard to accessible units. So if you wanted to just do a motion to direct staff to follow up on those items as discussed, and I'll include them in the motion, and then you can go ahead and do a separate motion for the bylaw.
Excellent, very good. And also along that note, to ensure that those comments are reflected within the subdivision agreement.
Okay.
Okay, all right, so a motion then to, oh, Councillor Huntley.
My only thing I'd add to that, Chair, is, kind of taking these things into consideration with any future subdivision agreements coming along, right? So we're not here at the end game trying to fix it again.
Completely agree, Councillor Huntley. Further questions? I think Deputy Mayor Graham, did you have your hand up? Deputy Mayor Graham is on mute and I can't read his lips.
Apologies, I was going to move the recommendation.
Okay, we're going to deal with the bylaw second, right, Madam Clerk?
Okay.
We're going to we'll receive the report and we will put forward our comments for approval of those comments, which Madam Clerk already has, as Ms. Ellis has indicated. So just a motion then to provide those comments as indicated. Deputy Mayor Graham, Councillor Huntley, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
He's frozen. Councillor Belch?
okay. Oh, I think we got a yes.
Yeah, I'm here. You hear me? Yeah.
Yes on the motion, Councillor Belch?
Yes.
Yes,
Get that?
okay.
And Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is passed. Next motion was with regards to passing of the bylaw, or are we doing it at the very end? With the rest of the bylaws, Madam Clerk?
You can proceed based on the report with the recommendation to pass the bylaw.
Okay, motion then to pat Councillor Huntley.
I'll move it.
Okay, so moved. Second, Deputy Mayor Graham, Madam Clerk.
Councillor Belch, we'll come back. Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor,
That was a
Yeah.
Councillor Belch, yes.
we've got Councillor Belch, Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
and Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is passed.
Yes.
Very good, excellent. Moving right along then, we'll move into our next report. Report Public Works 2020-13, expression of support for natural gas expansion in the township. Mr. Hancock.
Thank you, Mr.
Welcome,
Mayor.
Mr. Hancock.
You can hear me and see
We
me.
can see you and we can hear you.
That's good. Recommendation number 1, that council support the expansion of the natural gas in our township. Recommendation number 2, that the mayor be directed to forward a letter, draft copy attached as attachment number 5 to Enbridge Gas. And with this report, there is a number of attachments which included, attachment number 1 was the federal guidelines for potential projects as approved by the OEB. So municipalities throughout the province are looking at natural gas line expansions route. The attachment number 2 was a plan that shows the gas infrastructure that's in place in the township. And with that, the Enbridge Gas had a proposal, which was attachment number 3, showing a possible expansion to the south. We are asking them in this report to look at an expansion, one along Sire Line between County Road 10 and County Road 28. And number 2 along Moore Drive between Highway 115 and County Road 28. And The minimum they require is 50 users, whether they be residential, commercial, or industrial. We felt that if we're looking at employment lands and we're looking at some possibilities of where development might proceed, Sire Line was a good location. And of course, Moore Drive has an existing number of larger users in that area that would also be used a fair amount of natural gas. Last week, midweek, we were contacted or in discussions with Steve Brackenbridge, and Steve has been dealing and contacting Enbridge Gas for some time about the possibility of extension of a gas line to Brackenbridge Drive. So in my discussions, I said, we have no problem in putting that in as another location that we would like to look at gas. There are no guarantees through this process that any will be approved, but at least if we are extending it, let's try and extend it where we think is the best locations in the township for future users and existing users. Mr. Brackenbridge had said in his case that he is a large propane user, and it would help his operation, farming operation, and the agricultural operation he has there immensely if he can get to the natural gas. And there are generally some other residential properties in that area that could probably use gas. So any extensions would be good, but we felt that Sire, Moore, and Brackenbridge would be probably our priority in going back to Enbridge with our letter. And that's before you.
Very good. Questions from members of council? Deputy Mayor Graham.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. Mr. Hancock, I appreciate those comments. As always, this is a huge, I'm glad that this opportunity has been extended so that we can fully submit. A question just regarding the process, and I appreciate you taking on those considerations. I know that in conversations with Mr. Brackenridge, myself, about the huge benefit that would be not just to his business, but also the agricultural community by, the extension of the natural gas line. With regards to the submission itself, in attachment 3, you sort of outlined one hypothetical scenario. Is there any more clarity that you might be able to provide with regards to if we make this submission with it as outlined here, is that sort of what we're then bound to? Very sort of controlled in a controlled way or sort of limited to? Or is there some flexibilities should we become aware that we are in fact identified as an area for expansion that we could then sort of, better understand how to optimize or maximize the amount of businesses and also residents that come online?
So through Mr. Mayor to Deputy Mayor Graham, the process is expressions of interest, and that's really Enbridge had contacted us, and we said we are a municipality that is interested in expansion of gas lines throughout our community, and that could be a number of different locations. With what they brought forward a large area that was single family, and it was on the Oak Ridges Moraine, and we felt that we would be better to look at areas where we might have some potential development and otherwise. So with that being said, they are interested in our locations. Once we go in and the project is set in place, you will not be changing it. It is to be funded by the most part by the province, partly by Enbridge, and once they go forward. So the application has to be in by first week of August, and it's an application for a specific project or specific area. So we won't be changing once we go forward. We certainly, I think the province is looking at no different than with the internet. They're looking at expanding wherever they can. We have a lot of hub lines in the area, so it's a case of getting to these secondary areas to allow residents and farming operations, et cetera, but we'll only be able to do probably one this round. So we'll have to make sure we get it to where council wants it.
Very good.
Excellent questions from members of council. Anything further? None? Okay, motion then to receive the report and accept the recommendation with that inclusion of the of Brackenridge Drive that we spoke to. Councillor Moore and Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk?
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Belch, Councillor Huntley.
Mayor, I did have,
Tim has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Belch. I'm sorry, I didn't see a hand or anything. I didn't hear that. Go ahead, Councillor Belch.
some through you, Mayor.
We can't hear you, Councillor Belch. Your internet's not working, Councillor Belch.
Hello?
Councillor Belch, we can't hear you.
Okay.
I
I'm
heard
not
okay.
sure what I need to do then.
Okay, whatever you just did there worked fine. Proceed.
Am I on again?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just wondering, something that hasn't been mentioned is all the development
No, it's not working.
around the court best interest. Hello?
You're all choppy again.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, perhaps if he wanted to type a question, he could use the chat feature. If he wanted to remove his video, it might help his connection and he could access the chat feature.
I'm just calling him. I'll listen to his question. I'll repeat it for you.
Hey, Scott.
Okay.
Like, having
Oh, they already are.
Enbridge
That one's fine.
be
Yeah,
part
all good.
of the development.
Okay, perfect.
Oh,
Bye.
okay. That I wanted to know. Okay.
Okay, Councillor Belch was just concerned with the new developments, whether Enbridge would be part of it and whether it need to be reflected on this application, but natural gas is going into all of the new subdivisions, so it need not be raised at this point because it'll be incorporated into it. So good question, Councillor Belch. It is addressed. We're all good. So we're good with the recommendation that's before us with the inclusion of Breckenridge Drive. We do have a motion on the table, moved and seconded, and we're in the middle of a recorded vote. Madam Clerk, take it from there.
I will go back to Councillor Belch.
Yes. Did that work?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you. Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved with about 9 votes. All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hancock. Moving along, our next report is Report CAO 2020, Report and Capital Project Status. Ms. Hurley?
Yes, good afternoon, Council. The report is before you. We have added on some items from our last council meeting. If you have any questions or any adjustments, I'm happy to answer.
Questions from any members of council?
No.
My battery is going to die, so I'm going to have to call for a quick recess because I got to find the adapter to plug this thing in before I'm done. Okay, that was easy. Found it. We're back in business. Okay, go ahead. Okay, the one addition in light of our last conversation, I think we should add to the outstanding action item list the topic of the parking come back, that it goes to on CAO's list to deal with the double parking needs to be reflected within our zoning because that was certainly the intention and it needs to be spelled out more specifically. So I think we just leave that with the CAO, but I would like to put it on that list. Ms. Hurley, is there any specific wording on how that one is? You know what the intention is?
I'm fine. I will certainly talk to Ms. Ellis and we will add it on to the outstanding action.
Okay, very good. Anything else? Any other members? Anything? None? Okay, motion then to receive that with the addition. Councillor Moore and Deputy Mayor Graham, all in favor? Oh, sorry, Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. Councillor Belch, you're a ventriloquist. Your lips didn't even move on that. Yes, that was pretty good. Under general business, there is one item, 10.1, 2020 township events. So that is,
Progress,
Sorry,
yes.
Mr. Mayor, you've skipped your committee and council verbal
oh,
reports.
of course. Thank you. Okay, we will go around the, I guess around the square here. Councillor Huntley, updates for council committee verbal reports.
None at this time.
None at this time. Councillor Moore.
Just the 3 takeaways from the library board. The pandemic opening plans are now in phase 3 of 4. The library has been approved for 2 summer job positions. And the board's pleased with the amount of the online programming and patron interaction provided to staff.
Excellent.
That would be-
Deputy Mayor Graham.
Through you, Mayor, the Miller Valley Trails has been doing some work with regards to some additional signage to ensure safe travels throughout the pandemic, and we're hoping to have those up soon, but it's also just going to incorporate some general sort of best practices on the trails. The only other thing noteworthy would be that due to the sinkhole issue and some washout that was existing on one of the embankments on Station Trail, work will be commencing shortly to address that one culvert failure and also the embankment issue from one more at the west end with regards to the sinkhole culvert issue. And then further east, there's another embankment issue that's going to be shored up due to the sort of emergency nature of those things. Staff, and I want to express my appreciation to staff for working so quickly to get a tender out to get this project addressed quickly so that we can get these, especially Station Trail being so frequently traveled, get this trail up and opened and accessible. Unfortunately, it does mean while this work is going on, and as soon as it does start, which it could be as early as today, and there might be some initial things actually started last week, but there will be a substantial portion of that Station Trail closed for that construction. But the good news is we don't expect to take more than approximately 2 to 3 to 4 weeks at the latest. So, the idea is to have that back open and ready to go for the summer months. So that's the update. Happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Councillor Belch. Give us a nod, Councillor Belch. You're good? Oh, he's gone. Okay, nothing from Councillor Belch. A motion to receive the verbal reports. Councillor Huntley and Deputy Mayor. Oh, hold on.
Yes,
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Belch.
okay. Just a quick note that phase 1 of reopening of Ganaraska has been voted on. It's just for foot traffic into the Ganaraska. The other 2 phases, sort of with horses and then with ATVs, or to be discussed throughout the summer.
Very good. Excellent. Madam Clerk, I believe I have a mover and a seconder in Deputy
you
Mayor
get that?
Graham. Yes, we got that time, Councillor Belch. We're all good. Okay, so Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes,
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is carried. Thank you. Next item is general business. Item 10.1, 2020 township events. Sorry, did I hear something? Nope, we're good. Okay. This is just in light of the COVID-19. So the annual community events that are enjoyed by residents and visitors alike will be canceled for 2020 as a result of restrictions and public health guidelines related to COVID-19. While this is very unfortunate, public health must take a front seat at this time in an effort to keep the community safe and healthy. The 4 specific activities and celebrations that will be canceled in Cavan Monaghan in 2020 is Canada Day celebrations, Harvest Table Dinner, the Rolling Dinner, and the fire prevention activities. So we need a motion then?
Mr.
Ma'am?
Mayor, I would suggest we have a motion just because we have motions to direct staff to undertake these activities. Just a
it would be-
motion to support the cancellation of those four.
It would be a motion to not undertake these activities. And we have a mover in Deputy
Hello.
Mayor Graham and Councillor Moore. Any discussion? All in favor after we do a recorded vote by Madam Clerk?
Councillor Belch,
Tim,
thought we had him.
I thought so.
uh,
Thumb up or down?
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Huh.
No.
Okay. Well, we got a motion that just passed on that one. Moving along, correspondence for information. Is there any councillors that wish to bring forward any items from information purposes? Seeing none, correspondence for action, there is none. So we'll move into our bylaws and I will read the bylaws. Bylaw number 2020-26 being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of the levy and to provide for the adoption of tax rates and to further provide for penalty and interest in default of payment thereof for 2020. And bylaw number 2020-27 being a bylaw to provide for the adoption of special services levy. And bylaw number 2020-28 being a bylaw to provide for the levy and collection of special charges for the year 2020 in respect of the business improvement area. And bylaw number 2020-29 being a bylaw to temporarily exempt certain lands within registered plan 445M-256- for the Township of Cabamonian for part lot control, and bylaw number 2020-30 being a bylaw to adopt architectural control guidelines for plan of subdivision 15T-16001 be read a first, second, third time, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the corporate seal attached thereto. Just a note to the clerk that I do have Councillor Belch on the phone.
hi, Scott.
You're on live stream.
My connection was going in and out. Was there anything that was decided in regards to anything being saved?
Anything being saved?
The
No,
events,
we got the,
In regards to events?
oh, I'm echoing. Is it, I'm echoing?
Yep.
Regards to
Yeah,
events?
sorry, Tim. I'm almost done. I just got to get through these bylaws.
Okay.
Okay. I need a mover and a seconder for those bylaws. Councillor Moore and Deputy Mayor Graham. Madam Clerk, recorded vote. Councillor Belch can't reconnect, so we'll have to finish with these bylaws without Councillor Belch.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion is approved. There's no unfinished business. Any notices of motion? Seeing none, moving into the confirming bylaw. Bylaw number 2020-31 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the meeting held June 1st, 2020 be read a first, second, third time and signed by the mayor and the clerk and the corporate seal attached thereto. Moved by Deputy Mayor Graham, second. Councillor Huntley. Madam Clerk, recorded vote.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Mayor McFadden.
I see Councillor Belch.
Yes.
Is that?
Take it and run. Take it and run.
And myself, yes. Motion is approved. Very good. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Huntley and Deputy Mayor Graham. Oh, I see Councillor Belch. Let's give it to Councillor Belch on the seconder for the adjournment. We got a mover from Councillor Huntley and a seconder from
There you
Councillor
go.
Belch. Madam
Council-
Clerk?
Councillor Moore,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Graham,
Yes.
Councillor Belch,
Oh, you gotta,
no.
you gotta support this one, Councillor Belch. Huh.
Councillor Huntley,
Yes.
Councillor Belch, Mayor McFadden.
Yes, motion has passed 4-1.
Yes. Did you
Tim
take?
want to adjourn or?
Motion, or the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, Lana's still recording.
That went worse than the first